Hi, I'm Yue Xu.
And I'm Julie Krafchick.
We're active daters turned dating insiders.
Here to dive into everything modern dating and relationships.
Welcome to DATEABLE. Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to another episode of DATEABLE.
We've been talking about dating and everything related to dating for a decade. And now we're ready for that next season. And what could that be?
Diving into relationships. And, over the years, we've talked to so many world-renowned therapists, psychologists, PhDs, sex educators, relationship coaches. The list goes on. And I think for both of us, really understanding the psychology behind why we do what we do and how we interact with other human beings has always been fascinating. And I think when you look at it more, when you are with someone else, you're not just dating the person, you're dating their needs, their history, their fears, their vulnerabilities. And a lot of that really is where the psychology is at play.
And when we talk about dating, that's really just one part of the story. And for so much of the coaching and resources out there, it's related to getting into a relationship, but that's not where it ends. We've also found that's actually where a whole new set of stories and patterns start. So why don't we start this new chapter of our podcast, which is putting two people or two or more people who are mere strangers into this social experiment that we call relationships.
And don't worry, we're not going to stop talking about dating. We're very much going to keep that topic. We are going to also, though, be introducing a new podcast that we have called The Psychology of Relationships that's going to focus on more of these topics. So if you're someone that can't get enough of everything, please also go over there on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and follow us, rate and review as well. Or if you're someone that's been with us through different seasons, maybe you joined DATEABLE when you were just starting to date, and now you find yourself in a committed partnership and you want to really just understand, okay, how do we weather these different chapters? This is really going to be for you. I think especially for Yue and I too, we're in different chapters of our lives. I recently got married. Yue, you've been in a committed partnership now for 2 years. And, I think we're both okay, we want to just come in again with our, I don't know what when we first started DATEABLE, we were trying to get answers, right? We were trying to be students and understand. And I think we're trying to do the same here of what really sustains relationships? What makes them work? What makes them happy? How do you continue to have a conscious relationship when you have children and other stressors in your way as well?
And understanding what relationships entail will help you understand if you even want one.
Yes.
And I wish I had resources like this podcast when I was trying to understand if I wanted one, because the default answer is always yes, right? We date to get into relationships, but we never fully understood what relationships demand from you. So that's what we want to uncover here, to reveal all the beautiful and also all the challenges that come with a relationship.
And in the Psychology of Relationships podcast, we're going to deep dive with a lot of these experts that have really shed a lot of intel and insight into, what do relationships mean? What do they comprise of? What is required? And we're really going to dive into the psychology of relationships because the psychology gives you a roadmap for why people connect or clash and how to build something that lasts, or at least lasts for however long it's supposed to.
It's not about giving you this cookie cutter instructions on how to build a healthy relationship. It's really for us to have a starting point. Think about the starter for your bread. This is what this is. When you have a good starter, then you can have this beautiful bread that you make. I don't know. I've never made bread, but I'm just using that analogy, thinking that's how it works. And that's what we aim to do here, because once you understand the foundation for the psychology behind two or more people getting together, then you can build the foundation from there. And then you can DIY the hell out of how you want to do that relationship.
I think the whole world, and I guess subject matter of relationship science really amazes me all the time because like whoever thought, first of all, that was like a career path or area of study, but there's just so much around like insight from attachment theory and social psychology and clinical research. And we've been lucky to have so many experts on Dateable and have them, be on the psychology of relationships to really dive into all of this. And every time we talk to some of these folks that sometimes we're shocked that we're even talking to, we're like, wow, this person is pretty accomplished. It is always just like something that we feel so lucky that we're able to do. I think like for both of us having this podcast, like one of the biggest gifts from it is like we can talk to the people that we're able to. And for us to be able to share all those conversations with you all is such a pleasure.
And to have that access is something we're so grateful for. But consider us your besties who have access to some of the best relationship experts out there. And instead of you going to find these people or reading hours of material, we're here to deliver this news and information to you in a concise, digestible manner and hopefully entertaining because we like to make everything a little entertaining.
It's more fun that way because relationships can be hard. So might as well bring the entertaining part to them. So we're going to dive into all the topics throughout, the Psychology of Relationships podcast. But in this episode, we really wanted to like dive into, some of the common aspects of relationships and where psychology plays in. So before we get into that, make sure to follow us at Dateable Podcasts. Go get the book, How to Be Dateable. And we're going to take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. In March, we celebrate International Women's Day. So take a minute to reflect on your life if you identify as woman, how much you're doing and carrying. If you're anything like me, it's always juggling a million things and carrying a lot of invisible load. I recently was feeling a bit overwhelmed, so I turned to BetterHelp. With over 30,000 therapists, BetterHelp is the world's largest online therapy platform, having served over 6 million people globally. And the best part is that you get matched with the right therapist for you based on your needs and preferences. All I had to do was fill out a short questionnaire sharing what I was going through, and then you'll get matched with a therapist in as little as 24 hours. Typically, they get the match right the first time, but if you need to make a switch, they can easily do that for you and rematch you with another therapist. Your emotional well-being matters. Find support and feel lighter in therapy. Sign up and get 10% off at BetterHelp.com. That's BetterHelp.com.
Getting dressed should not be this hard, but somehow it is. And that's why I love Armoire, because Armoire makes getting dressed easy with a clothing rental membership that helps you build the perfect wardrobe with high-quality, unique brands picked just for you. You just take a quick 5-minute style quiz, choose from your personalized closet, and your pieces show up at your door in as little as 2 days. I've been using Armoire a lot when I travel, and I'm heading to the East Coast soon, and instead of buying coats and sweaters I'll never wear in LA, I rented the cutest ones through Armoire. And the hot tip is I get them delivered to the hotel, so I don't have to carry them in my luggage. It's also my favorite way to test new styles without committing or cluttering my closet. I love that I always have something new to wear without the decision fatigue and without feeling guilty about wearing something once. Right now, Dateable listeners can give Armoire a try and get up to 60% off their first month. That's up to $150 off. Just visit armoire.style/dateable. That's ARMOIRE.style/DATEABLE to get up to 60% off your first month and never worry about what to wear again. Try Armoire today.
These days, I'm all about quality over quantity, especially in my closet. If it's not well made and versatile, it's just not worth it to me. That's honestly why I love Quince. The fabrics feel elevated, the cuts are thoughtful, and the pricing actually makes sense. My entire wardrobe at this point is pretty much Quince. Their cotton V-neck tee is my go-to, whether it's a nice day on its own or for any layering. It just feels so luxe and comfortable and was a fraction of the price of anywhere else I looked. overlooked. And that's because Quince works directly with safe, ethical factories and cuts out the middlemen. You're not paying for brand markup or fancy retail stores, just quality clothing. Right now, go to quince.com/dateable for free shipping and 365-day returns. That's a full year to wear it and love it. And you will. Now available in Canada too. Don't keep settling for clothes that don't last. Go to quince.com/dateable for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/dateable. So understanding the psychology behind relationships is like having a map. It doesn't eliminate the terrain. You're still going to have the conflict, the differences, the stress, but it helps you see the paths, the pitfalls, and the strategies for moving through them. So we wanted to dive into some of the biggest challenges in, I guess, like almost like the foundations of a relationship and look at how psychology is really at play.
And number one is being aware of the patterns. Everyone comes with patterns. Some of us brand that as baggage. We like to call that patterns because it's not that negative. You know, what we've experienced in the past, you can see it in two different ways. And one way is just this, these are things that have happened to you over and over again so that now it's ingrained in the way you carry yourself.
And psychology really reminds you that everyone brings their history, their wounds, and their needs. So understanding your partner and having that empathy for them, also understanding yourself. I think for me, that's been one of the most pivotal aspects of being in a relationship, that a lot gets shined back on you. And you're like, oh, this thing that I'm saying is like a problem with my relationship actually is something that I'm carrying from my childhood into the relationship.
Right. And then sometimes you recognize that it's not a pattern. Maybe it's a one-off that you've carried around as a pattern. You think it happens to you over and over again, making you into the victim. But your partner can clearly see, okay, actually that was a one-off. And now you're just playing the victim versus like this is something that has occurred to you for a very long time. And one of my patterns I know for sure is running away. Ever since I was a kid, my parents would be disappointed or I would do something that I knew was bad. Instead of addressing it and being communicative with it, I would run away, or I would, I don't know, tell my parents that it was their fault. You know, that is the best way to gaslight someone, is to be like, actually, you did this to me. I did this because of you. So I know that's a pattern of mine because I am not great at being accountable for my actions because for so long I was not allowed to address them.
And think about, this is why I think this topic is so important and why we need to dive into the psychology more, because in past relationships, it's so easy when someone does something to just be like, it's over. We're done. We're broken. This isn't going to work out.
That was me.
And probably your partners too, right? Like they're just like, oh, she's being a little standoffish. This isn't going to work out. It's like we're all so quick to throw in the towel. And the reality is if you're going to do life with someone and do a long-term partnership, there's going to be times that, you know, you hurt each other a little.
Yeah.
And I think the sticking together and working through it, and that's something that I feel like has been so different in my current partnership than ever before. It's like, okay, what's beneath this? What's happening here really? And I think that is so important to heal with someone and to really, you know, work together as a unit with these patterns.
I've also learned that there's a difference between someone's behavior versus someone's character. And for a lot of my past relationships, I run away from someone's behavior. Like, we're breaking up because you did this, but I was ignoring the character beneath it. So my current partnership, we actually, when we have that conversation of like, okay, I'm running away from this, we're like, I think this is done. Then we ask, are we breaking up with the behavior or the person? And we actually break up, we do an actual breakup with the behavior. We're no longer, right? Like, we're no longer going to tolerate this kind of behavior in a relationship. So we're going to do a little breakup here. But we're not breaking up with the person. There's a huge difference. And that's really helped me both understand that I do have control and also to let go of these patterns of like running away, because now I can see the difference between behavior versus character.
You all know I have a mixed relationship with attachment theory.
Yes.
But I do think the benefit, what I like about it, I'll start there. What I like about it is that it takes in learned behaviors from our past, from our childhood, what we grew up around. And I just remember we had this episode with Mark Scholes. He's a psychotherapist that we had of like why you're choosing the wrong people. And something he said like has continued to stick with me. It was like, you're not choosing the wrong people. You're choosing what's familiar. You're choosing like the learned behavior. So like if you had a caregiver that like wasn't, attuned to your needs and, was kind of putting themselves first, then that's the type of person you go for later in life. And I think this really carries over too to like how we act. I feel like as someone that has, healed a lot of my anxious attachment, it still shows up from time to time. But I think a lot of times, like you can look at like, okay, if someone feels like they're being clingy, can you look a little deeper into what's really happening? They learn that closeness equals safety, that's what they need in a partnership. So instead of being like, oh, this person's being clingy, can you reframe it of like, okay, how can I actually meet the need of this person while also maintaining my own boundaries?
Yes. There's this great Einstein quote that I'm going to misquote because I just read it this morning. Basically, so I'm just going to summarize something like you can't address the problem by taking the same actions that created the problem in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's how this example plays out too. If you find the problem is someone being clingy, the answer is not to keep telling them that they're clingy and naming it as clingy, but to take a different action. It's how we should be pushing ourselves to change in every aspect of life. You can't expect the same outcome if you're doing the exact same behavior to get that outcome in the first place.
And where I don't love attachment theory is sometimes I feel like we just like write off someone's behavior and it doesn't give room to grow. So it's like, oh, they're cold and dismissive. They're just avoidant. That's just who they are. And I think with all of this, the understanding patterns and becoming aware of it, the idea isn't just to like be like, this is who I am, but it's like, okay, now that I know, what can I do to take these little steps to shift into being a better partner, being in a better relationship, doing the things that I need to for another human being. Like we can't just say like, oh, well, I don't ever want to talk about anything because, I was raised in a certain way. Like that's not going to get us very far. But I think like one tool that has really helped me and my partner, and I know a lot of other people from our talking about this for our podcast, is these relationship check-ins because it gives that space for people to be able to share their needs and to come out with it, instead of just feeling like we need to be mind readers, we can actually take the opportunity to ask, like, what do you need from me to feel supported?
Yes.
And if you're anxious, you can say, like, I need reassurance instead of just like testing someone. Or if you're avoidant, like, how do you start having these very small signals of availability? Like maybe it's like a quick hug before leaving for the morning. It doesn't need to be grand gestures. Like it can just be small. Let's get 1% better each day. But the first step is to understand what you're dealing with in the first place.
Most of relationships aren't about grand gestures. I had to learn that because I had to unlearn that from the movies we've seen.
Yes.
It's not about the boombox outside of your house in the rain. It is, like my partner says all the time, one of the most memorable moments he has is when we were sort of in a conflict and I was holding onto his pinky in a yoga class. And he's like, I still remember that as one of the most touching moments. And I don't even see it as that. I'm like, oh yeah, I was showing affection. To him, it meant the world. So these small gestures mean everything. And this is why we love talking about the psychology of relationships, because dating is about knowing who someone is in that moment in time. You've just arrived. You're a stranger. I want to know how you got here. Relationship is who this person will be. And you are constantly evolving with your partner and understanding who will you be tomorrow. And that's so exciting because the sky's the limit on finding out who someone is in the future.
I think the second pillar, and I think this is a big one, is better communication and repair. And psychology has confirmed and shows that conflict is indeed normal. And what matters most is how couples repair. And I think for me, this is a huge one because I feel like I was running from conflict for so long and I just suppressed it. Like I never wanted to state anything that was wrong because I didn't want a fight. I equated conflict with fighting.
Yes.
And I think from doing our podcast Dateable, I've really learned, and we're going to definitely dive into this in a lot more depth in the psychology of relationships, but I've learned how conflict actually can bring you closer if done the right way. And it's kind of like the example you were just giving, Yue, about like holding each other's pinky, like after a disagreement. Like that's something now that is like a memory that actually secures you as a couple.
Yeah, it's creating that safe space. But many of us, and I'll speak for myself, didn't grow up with that as a model. I saw my parents rupture. I did not see them having constructive fights. I saw them rupture, and the way they would repair is my mom would try to diffuse the situation by laughing or being apologetic or being soft. And I thought, I rejected that. I was like, hell no, I'm never going to want to fight with a partner because I never want to bring myself into that moment of weakness just to diffuse the situation. I didn't realize that there's a healthier way to fight. And now we're going to shed some light on that because I would go out on a limb and say probably many of you have grown up with that kind of model of conflict that you want to avoid so much because you don't want to rupture like that.
And that's the beauty of the generation we're in, the therapy generation, because I think it has really helped be able to communicate different styles and appreciate them. Like, I feel like for a long time, I didn't really have like the self-awareness to know that other people thought about things differently or navigated conflict differently. And, you know, one person might be more direct and the other might be more reserved. And it doesn't mean that like one cares more and the other cares less, or, you know, like one person is always right and the other is wrong because there might be the louder voice. It's really about like, how do we work together and, you know, get through this problem that we're facing? Not like that you're the problem. It's the collective problem.
Yes. Being in this together to create a safe space. We cannot say this enough. Safety is probably the basis of every relationship, and it is also the basis of every problem you'll have. Safety will lead to intimacy issues. Safety will lead to financial issues. If you lack the safety, you're going to be lacking in other areas. So this communication is what's going to create that sense of safety with each other in a collective way that Julie was saying, and making you feel like you're in this together, that you're never fighting this fight by yourself.
And misunderstandings and unspoken expectations, like when they're not addressed, that's when it becomes like a tiny molehill that becomes like a massive mountain.
Yep.
Right? Like that's when things like really just like degrade the relationship. And again, you know, I'm a cheerleader for these relationship check-ins. I remember for years before I was in a serious relationship, I was like, I don't understand why you have to do this. You're always talking to your partner. I use the one that Dr. Alexandra Solomon, her template for one. Every week, my partner and I sit down and do this for 30 minutes. And, you know, there's what's going well in your week, like stuff just catch up, and then a hot damn or compliment. And then my favorite one is what's a relational growing edge?
Yes.
And really encourage like my partner to even say something tiny, like whatever it is, because the more it builds, that's when it becomes like unmanageable. And if you can just get things out when they're small, that's how you like, you know, don't have them build.
I was on a call with like T-Mobile customer service the other day, and I realized this is a trick they do in customer service industry where at the end of the call, they always ask, is there anything else I can help you with? And even though you feel like they've already addressed your problem, that question alone just makes you open your aperture to what else could I possibly need help with, right? And then you take that moment to think about it. And I think it's the same thing in these check-ins. Even if you feel like everything's going well, just one question alone of like, what could be going better, then it opens up the way you think about the relationship. It's not finding problems, but it's really to shed light on some of the things you may have swept under the rug or repressed for a long time.
And I think even, you know, beyond communication, I would argue the number one thing that you need in a relationship is repair. because, you can voice all the concerns and the challenges, but how do you get your relationship back to a place where you both feel loved and supported and, that like the good stuff that comes with the relationship, right? Like you don't want to always be in these heavy conversations. And I remember doing couples therapy and the therapist really like honing in on repair. And I feel like it wasn't something I had heard as much as like a standalone. Like it was always kind of grouped in with communication, or maybe I didn't have like the verbiage around it. And I think it almost deserves so much attention because I still like recall this one time that it was like a little challenging in a couples therapy session. And then we were able to really repair it and then like continue on and go out for the night and have like one of the most incredible date nights after something kind of heavy. Yeah. And I think the fact that we were able to, we didn't just like brush it under the rug and be like, okay, let's just go out and pretend it didn't happen. Like we worked through it, but then got to a place that we're like, okay, we're moving forward. We're not going to like keep harping on this either.
Yes. Yes. And repairing is different than makeup.
Yes.
We've been talking about makeup, right? In terms of like makeup sex and like it's so hot when you make up, because making up just means you're ignoring, avoiding. You're like, okay, let's just move forward like this never happened. Repairing is addressing and also addressing what you're going to do with it moving forward. So you have a plan. Making up is completely just in the moment of like, nope, we're kiboshing this for now, but it'll definitely come up again next week.
And we're going to dive into more about Gottman's research. You might have heard of the soft startup instead of an attack, or to catch repair attempts like, can we reset? Or can we pause and try again? Or I don't like how this is going. I care about us. That came out wrong. Let me restate. Like anything that can help like move it along and again, make it feel like more of a team pushing through whatever challenge there is.
And the third pillar would be emotional regulation and support. And for very much biological reasons, our brain switches to that fight or flight mode during any sort of conflict, and it's so easy to just shut down or to rupture. That's very normal. But how do we also take accountability for our reaction in that moment and emotionally regulate, which is probably something many of us find challenging, because even as kids, you're just taught to rupture so that you get milk. Yeah. You're not taught to be like, Mommy, would you mind giving me some milk today? You're like,
is that your British accent coming out?
I don't know why. I don't know why I'm British when I'm a baby, but it's like, I was a British baby. Did you know that? Mommy, would you mind? But first, you're taught as a kid to scream and yell to get attention, to get the things that you want. You can't do that in a relationship as adults. So we had to learn that when we're adults.
And the reality, too, is, of course, you have to find your own happiness within yourself. Like, that's a given.
Yeah.
And regulate your own emotions. But the reality, too, though, is that we do need emotional responsiveness from our partners. That's usually why we're in a relationship to begin with. I think to go as far as being like, well, I own all my emotions, it's almost like dismissing what the beauty of partnership is too, to have someone there to support you. So we're not saying like, don't do your own work. Absolutely, that's going to benefit the relationship. But it's also important for you as partners to understand this psychology and understanding of what emotional regulation means, that you can work together and get yourselves to a place that you're feeling closeness, because ultimately that's what really makes relationships thrive.
I laugh because my partner is very much stoic when it comes to things that he doesn't care about, like gossip. So whenever I do deliver some news to him and he's just like no expression, I'm like, come on, just fake something. Fake like bright-eyed and like, just fake some like, oh my God. So he does that now just for me. But, this is a very rudimentary example. But yes, having that relational, emotional regulation, and we can emotionally regulate better in a relationship than if we're on our own. Just like how our frequencies will match up. When you say, oh, we're vibing, it's the same thing. It's like when your frequencies are matching up, then you're able to regulate each other better. So this is actually such a great tool for a couple to really hone in on, because you don't have to do it alone anymore.
Yeah, and Sue Johnson, the author of Hold Me Tight and co-founder of Emotionally Focused Therapy, she shared that the deepest relationship question is, are you there for me? And I found that like so profound because really at the end of the day, that is what we're looking for in a partner, someone that is there. So her whole thing was this emotional responsiveness, ARE, accessible, responsive, engaged. So accessible, can I reach you? Responsive, you notice and care about my needs. And engaged, you're present and invested. So an example would be like accessible, you're going to put away your phone during a 15-minute check-in. Responsive, when your partner sighs, instead of ignoring it, you ask like if it was a hard day. And engaged, you share the daily high and low moments so you're emotionally caught up with each other. And this sounds like elementary, but I do think like as, stressors come in and other parts of life happen, it is easy to like take this for granted. So it's really important to continue to like do this work on a daily basis.
This is all to show you how important presence is in a relationship. These are the steps to be present in any situation. And we've been on calls with people who want help or they want to tell us something. And then we would go into kind of like what we think is going on. We give them advice. And then the takeaways from certain people is just so off from what we were trying to tell them. And I've seen this in relationships, my previous relationship as well. You think someone's there, someone's present, someone's listening, but they're just taking away what they want to hear or taking away what they think they heard. So being very clearly present for your partner, following the R step will help you really hear what they're trying to say, not what you think they're trying to say.
And this, I think, really goes into our fourth pillar, reciprocity and appreciation, which is really teamwork at the end of the day. So we're going to dive into this a little more, but before we do, let's take a minute to hear from our sponsors. Watching our loved ones age is one of life's toughest transitions. It can be stressful to take care of a loved one, and I've had many friends been really overwhelmed trying to balance work, their children, and the rest of life at the same time. If you don't know where to start, Care.com is here to help you breathe again. You can browse background-checked in-home caregivers or explore local senior living communities. At Care.com, you'll find specialized support for everything from meal prep to support for loved ones with dementia, backed by real reviews from families just like yours. And Care.com has safety and hiring tools so you can hire with confidence. Or you can even get a senior care advisor plan and talk to a master's level social worker to build a personalized care plan for you. We're partnering with Care.com because it really is an easier way to find help. For a limited time, go to Care.com and use the code DATEABLE for 20% off your initial Care.com subscription or a senior care advisor plan. That's DATEABLE, all one word. With Care.com, start your senior care journey with confidence.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.
So being a team, to me, this is so foundational to partnership. And this is really like the small things like picking a new TV show together to the big decisions like money and family dynamics and household roles. Like when we go in as like we face the world together, that's so different and fundamental than when I do this or you do that. And I think that's really where like relationships erode when this teamwork is not present.
And it's probably the most difficult transition from being single to being in a relationship, is turning the I into a we. It's Julie's example of bringing one fork instead of two forks to the dinner table. It's my example of making all my travel plans for the year without ever telling my partner. He is like, what? You're leaving next week? I had no idea. So going from that to like now sharing a calendar was a huge step for me. But that is so worth the pause and the conversation. Otherwise, you are just two people living separate lives and not involving each other or integrating each other.
And sadly, I've seen this in relationships of friends that have been together for decades, that maybe it starts off more we and it erodes after time. And again, this is why relationships are a constant, effort that's being put into it. I think especially like when the chores start to build up or the responsibilities of parenting and all the things that happen, it can feel like one person is doing everything. And instead of talking about it, a lot of resentment builds. When that 50-50, or we'll do an episode actually 80-80, we believe, of relationships. When one person feels like they are carrying all the weight, that is, the downfall. And when that appreciation isn't shown too, like even like a simple thank you for doing laundry, I know it's not fun, that goes such a long way.
And I understand for all the mavericks out there, it's so hard to understand this concept sometimes because you're taught like, don't lose yourself in a relationship. You got to be really strong in who you are and your identity. And that almost feels like this is the counter to that. And it's not. It's when you're in a collaborative partnership that's loving and supportive, you are more empowered to be more of an individual and lean into your identity. But when you're selfish and only do the things that you want to do, only take care of your needs, that's when you start feeling threatened in your independence because you're only thinking about yourself. So learning from this the hard way, and you can take it from me, Mavericks. If you lean into the we, the 80-80, you get more of that me through it all.
I love that. And it really all comes back to like social exchange and equity theories, where we subconsciously weigh the costs versus rewards in relationships. So if it feels like you're pulling all the weight and doing everything and you don't have a partner that's appreciative and there for you, that's when satisfaction drops. And again, it goes back to what we were saying earlier of like, how do you get ahead of this stuff before it builds into this massive mountain that you can't come back from? That's when the divorce happens. That's when the marital dissatisfaction happens. And this is why like it's so important to like take notice of this. I'm speaking to myself as a newly married person too, that you don't want to take people for granted, like fairness and reciprocity is what keeps relationships stable and going.
If you all are interested, because I'd be interested, we will do an episode on equity in a relationship. It is so fascinating to me because me taking out the trash might seem like such a chore. And if my partner doesn't do it, I'm like, this is such an unfair relationship. I have to take out the trash. But my partner could see taking out the trash as nothing.
Yeah.
So to him, he's like, this is very equal. Like you can take out the trash. I can what's the big deal? So the idea of equity is not what you're doing, is how you view the things that you're doing.
I'm so glad you say that. And I think it brings us into the fifth one too, of managing expectations and developing a growth mindset, because like expectations are kind of like what kills us too. Like if we go in with the mindset that like, I'm supposed to do this and they're supposed to do this and we're not working together. And also like what happens early in a relationship, I feel like isn't what's necessarily what is needed later for that stability and long-term goals.
No, what you develop, that's why dating and relationships are quite different. What you're looking for in dating someone is not everything that's going to sustain a relationship, and carrying those expectations of like couples who've been together for 10 years being like, remember we were so in love in the beginning? That's just unfair. That's unrealistic because your relationship has evolved out of that. So coming into a relationship, knowing you're going to grow, knowing that the chemistry is going to change and everything is going to evolve, that's what's going to set you up for success.
Yeah. And I think also like research shows that no partner is going to meet all your needs. And that's why like family and friends and self-care and all the other relationships in our lives are really important and should not be like just thrown to the wayside now that we have a partner. And I think finding that rhythm between me and we is always tricky too, of like, how do I maintain myself and my own independence, but also togetherness? And, you know, one person might want closeness and the other person needs the space. But how do you do it in a way that you honor yourself, but also honor the relationship?
And then there's always just renegotiating.
Yeah.
I am constantly in a state of renegotiating my needs, their needs, because your needs are going to change too. What I wanted 6 months ago is so not what I need right now. But if my partner is still expecting my needs to be the same 6 months ago, he's going to be addressing something completely off. So it is also our responsibility to keep communicating and renegotiating.
That's why knowing your own needs, again, it goes back to your own patterns and awareness, is so pivotal, because like that's the only way that you can continue to allow, you know, this growth to happen. And I think having this growth mindset in relationship versus a destiny mindset. So I love this distinction. The growth mindset is seeing relationships as evolving and requiring effort, where destiny mindset is love as meant to be. So like, it's just meant to be that way. It happened that way. So like, if there's conflict, it's failure.
Yeah, right. And then knowing when it's you still have more effort to give, and when it's you've grown out of this relationship, you've reached capacity of this relationship. That's also a destiny mindset we want to avoid. Because some people just go, well, we're destined to be together. So even if this sucks, we're just going to power through it. How many marriages have powered through and endured for decades because they felt that way? Well, having this growth mindset is you can both understand at a certain point, maybe you go, we've both grown out of this relationship. Either we find a new iteration or we depart.
Yeah. And I think finding the new iteration, it's like, of course, the growth mindset, let's say you're having intimacy struggles. It's recognizing this might not be forever. Let's say you just had children. Maybe the intimacy is not happening as often as it was. It can be a phase. It doesn't mean it's how it is forever now. That being said, though, it doesn't mean that just acknowledging it is enough. It's the new work and new ways of building up again and finding a new normal with whatever you're in the current state.
That's so hard. Even you just say that.
But that's why the check-ins, I think, are still so important in looking at the issue as us versus the issue versus me versus you.
Yeah. And knowing what's mine and what's yours. Sometimes I may be feeling I'm the type of person just absorbs other people's problems and energies. And I need to just put a boundary on that. Actually, that's yours. That's not mine.
I know one thing that drives my partner crazy is my phone usage. And
no, he's embraced that.
So that's what I was going to say. I was going to say there's a couple things. Like, I think one piece is like, I'm like, okay, I might not be like all of a sudden able to put away my phone completely, but I start baby steps like, okay, at dinner, I'm not going to have my phone. And then like you said, Yue just officiated my wedding, so she knows this part. He was saying how like he actually sees like me on my phone as fostering relationships with friends and building like social plans for us. So it's again, like having empathy, I think, maybe for the other person a little and understanding them and not just assuming like, oh, they're doing something to ignore me. But also for me, it's not like enough to just be like, this is how I am, or, you know, ignore the need that he has too.
Yes. Well, because everybody brings in their patterns that we talked about. And you can say that that's malicious or like this person's doing it to piss me off. Or you can just say they're just bringing their pattern and I'm going to interrupt the pattern because they don't know that they have this pattern.
I think ultimately the sixth pillar that we believe is so foundational that we want to dive into is this creating shared meaning and connection. I really feel like without this, like a relationship cannot flourish. So it's like having this, and there's a lot of research that backs this up, of like couples that create a shared story of us are more resilient. Like we go through hard times together instead of like, you did this or I did this, and having these rituals of connection. And this can be like the small daily moment to, you know, activities that you do together on a weekly or monthly basis.
And we are so looking forward to expanding more on that because there's so many great ideas of just really simple ways of creating this shared culture. So when like the question I always ask is, how do you want to leave the people you come across as a couple? Like, how do you want to leave them? Do you want them to leave thinking, what a awesome couple that we just encountered and I'm energized and I'm feeling positive? Or you want to feel them to feel drained or stressed? Like, that is the culture you want to create so you can leave other people with the same feeling.
I think one of the things early on that my partner and I did that actually really set a foundation is we had a shared Google Keep of all these like activities we wanted to do. And like there could be like a bigger dream or aspiration too, like a travel destination or getting a dog was on the list. And like we haven't even checked off all of them, but even at the beginning, it was just like date ideas and like things we wanted to do. But it made it feel like we were like a unit, like we were doing things together, building rituals and inside jokes and traditions. And that's what really like strengthens the partnership. So I think people can, take away like small ideas from this, but we'll certainly dive into episodes that really go deeper because building this shared story, even early dating, all the way to like years and years into a marriage, it's always important.
And it's such good information. You could be sharing your dreams. A couple who dreams together will stay together, but you could be sharing dreams that may not be your partner's dream. Like I think earlier on, my partner's like, my dream is to live in the mountains. I'm like, fuck that. That is not my dream. So it opened up the conversation of why that is your dream. So I love that you can start this conversation at any point in your relationship because it's all living in our heads and we just assume our partners share similar dreams, but maybe they don't. And let's talk about it.
Right. And then you can be like, okay, is there an iteration of the dream that would work for me? Or is that a solo dream that you can go off and do yourself?
Exactly. Exactly. You live in the mountains Monday through Wednesday.
Yeah. I mean, I think the Gottman's turning toward and positivity ratio are two things that listeners can take away today. So the turning toward is like when your partner points something out small, like, look at that sunset. Instead of responding with silence, you have interest. Like it's, all those little bid for connection. It's gestures for attention or affection or help. Like it's so important to hone into these and to be there present again for the person in your life.
Right. And the positivity ratio is aiming for 5 positive interactions for every 1 criticism or complaint. I feel like we can do this with our parents as well. Is
every relationship in our life.
Every relationship, because of course you're going to come upon negative circumstances. But for that one negative experience, try to offset that with 5 positive ones like a hug or an inside joke or a nice dinner or a compliment. Always keeping the ratio of positive in the upper number.
This one's so important because this is what, again, makes you feel like you have that shared meaning and connection. Because if you feel like you're always criticized by someone, that relationship is going to erode real fast.
That's for sure.
Well, I'm glad that we were able to kind of go through these 6 pillars that we feel like are so pivotal to keeping the relationship going. Of course, easier said than done to just walk through these 6. That's why we're going to be diving into a whole new series and then continued on the podcast.
Yup. But for now, you know what you're supposed to do. Think about what more would you want in a relationship that you've never gotten before? Here's a question. What more is it that you would love to have in a relationship that you haven't experienced before?
For everyone listening, make sure to go out and get our book, How to Be Dateable, and also subscribe to our new podcast, The Psychology of Relationships.
You're going to love it because we love it. All right. We'll see you all next week.
Stay dateable.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.